How to deal with your negative thoughts. We all experience those quiet, difficult moments when negative thoughts seem to take over. They creep into our minds, making us feel unworthy, incapable, or scared of what lies ahead. It's a battle that every one of us faces at some point, sometimes daily. The good news is that these thoughts, as powerful as they feel, do not define who we are. So how do we deal with them? First, we must acknowledge them. Ignoring negativity rarely works. If you pretend those thoughts don't exist, they often grow louder. Instead, recognize them, name them, tell yourself, I see you, I hear you. Because awareness is the first step toward change. Next, challenge these thoughts. Our minds sometimes trick us into believing things that simply aren't true, that we're not good enough, that we will fail, that we're all alone. But ask yourself honestly, are these thoughts really based on fact? Would you say these words to a dear friend? Probably not. Treat yourself with the same compassion. Then, replace those negative thoughts with positive and truthful ones. If you catch yourself thinking, I can't do this, counter it by saying, I can do this one small step at a time. Replace I'm worthless with I have value and purpose. Our minds believe what we tell them most often, so let's give them better messages to believe. Also, practice gratitude. It's very difficult for negativity to thrive in a heart that's focused on the good, even the small good things. Gratitude grounds you in the present moment and reminds you that life, despite its struggles, is also full of light. And finally, take action. Negative thoughts thrive on passivity. Whether it's going for a walk, reading a book, talking to a friend, or writing your thoughts down, action is one of the most powerful antidotes. Movement breaks the cycle and tells your brain that you are strong enough to respond, not react. Remember, you are more than your thoughts. You are more than your fears. The next time those thoughts come knocking, face them head on with compassion, truth, and action. Over time, you'll find they grow quieter, and your own voice, the one that believes in you, will grow louder. You have the power to reclaim your mind. Start today. Acknowledging your negative thoughts, ladies and gentlemen, every one of us, at some point in life, encounters a stream of thoughts that feel dark, heavy, or even frightening. They whisper things like, you're not enough, you'll never succeed, or people don't truly care. These thoughts seem to appear from nowhere and settle into our minds like an unwelcome guest. But here's the truth: these thoughts, though real, do not define who we are. They only have as much power as we choose to give them, and the very first step toward taking away their power is to acknowledge them. Acknowledging your negative thoughts is not about accepting them as truth. It is simply seeing them for what they are: thoughts. Too often, we make the mistake of pushing these thoughts away, pretending they don't exist, hoping that ignoring them will make them disappear. But more often than not, the opposite happens. They grow stronger and louder. It's like putting a lid on a boiling pot. Eventually, the pressure builds up until it explodes. That's why awareness is so powerful. When you acknowledge a negative thought, you create a safe distance between you and that thought. It allows you to say, I see you, instead of being controlled by it. That awareness is the moment you take back control of your mind. But let's talk about what acknowledging looks like in practice. Imagine you're preparing for an important presentation at work. Suddenly, you're hit by a thought: you're going to mess this up. Our instinct might be to panic, or worse, believe it entirely. But what if instead you paused and recognized this as a fear, as a thought passing through your mind, not a fact? What if you acknowledged it by saying, I hear this fear, and then allowed yourself to explore it calmly? You might then realize that this thought stems from nervousness, perfectionism, or past experiences of self-doubt. By acknowledging the thought, you strip it of its hidden power. It no longer feels like a dark force lurking in the background. Instead, it becomes a known part of your emotional landscape, something you can work with. We must also recognize that thoughts often arise without our conscious invitation. Sometimes they are influenced by what we read, what we see on social media, or by old habits and beliefs that have been ingrained over the years. Knowing this allows us to be gentler with ourselves. You're not to blame for having negative thoughts. They are an inevitable part of the human experience. What truly matters is how you respond to them. And acknowledging them is a crucial response, one that embodies self-compassion. When you say to yourself, "I recognize this as a thought I'm having," you're making a powerful statement. You're showing that you respect yourself enough to listen without judgment. That's so important because shame and self-criticism only feed negative thoughts further, but awareness and kindness, they create a safe space for you to process your feelings honestly and begin to shift your inner dialogue. Additionally, acknowledging your negative thoughts opens the door to seeing patterns. Maybe you notice that self-criticism spikes every time you make a mistake. Perhaps you recognize that you tend to fear rejection most when you care deeply about someone. With this insight, you can begin to see your thoughts not as a chaotic storm, but as a map, pointing toward the areas in your life that need compassion and care, and that awareness empowers you. By acknowledging your negative thoughts, you stop reacting on autopilot. Instead of being swept away by them, you become a calm observer. This is the first major victory the moment you recognize that you are not your thoughts. So the next time those harsh, uninvited thoughts visit you, I encourage you to take a deep breath and say to yourself, "I see you." Treat them with gentle curiosity rather than fear. Allow yourself to feel what you feel without becoming trapped by it. It is okay to acknowledge worry, sadness, anger, or self-doubt. In doing so, you accept that they exist, but you also affirm your own strength to face them. Your thoughts may come and go like waves, rising and crashing against the shores of your mind, but you are the ocean, deep, vast, and enduring. By practicing this kind of acknowledgement, you begin to cultivate an inner resilience that cannot easily be shaken. You make space for healing, for new beliefs to grow, and most importantly, for your own voice, the one rooted in compassion and truth, to rise up louder than any negativity. Ladies and gentlemen, acknowledging your negative thoughts is not a sign of weakness. It is an act of courage. It is an act of self-care. It is the very first, most powerful step toward reclaiming your inner peace. Challenging false beliefs, ladies and gentlemen. We all hold beliefs about ourselves, about others, and about the world around us. Some of these beliefs help us grow, strive, and live with purpose, but there are also beliefs that do the opposite. They hold us back, sabotage our happiness, and make us feel small and powerless. These are the false beliefs, and they can become so deeply ingrained that we hardly even recognize them as lies. They feel like absolute truth. That's why challenging false beliefs is one of the most empowering steps you can take toward becoming your best self. So, what exactly is a false belief? It's an idea that doesn't reflect reality, yet we accept it as fact. Maybe you believe you're not talented enough to pursue your dreams. Maybe you believe that nobody truly cares about you. Maybe you believe that every mistake you make defines your worth. These thoughts repeat themselves over and over like a song you never chose to play, and eventually they become part of your inner soundtrack. But here's the good news: you can change the tune. To do that, you must first recognize the false beliefs lurking in your mind. Pay attention to the way you talk to yourself. Do you catch yourself using absolute language like "I always fail," "I never do anything right," or "that will never happen for me"? These are signs that you're clinging to a false belief, and this is the perfect moment to pause and challenge it. The next step is to question the belief honestly and without judgment. Ask yourself, is this true? Is it really a fact, or just an assumption I've made? Do I have proof that this is how things will always be? Let's say you believe, "I'm not good enough to apply for this promotion." Have you considered all the evidence that says you are capable? Maybe you have years of experience, glowing feedback from coworkers, or skills that match the role perfectly. When you look at the full picture instead of only the fear, you may realize that this belief is not just false, it's unfair to you. And that's the most powerful insight of all. False beliefs rarely come from a kind or accurate place. They come from fear, past disappointments, or harsh criticism, often from ourselves or others. When we accept those false beliefs without questioning them, we give up our power. But when we challenge them, we take that power back. Of course, this process can feel uncomfortable. It's hard to look at the thoughts that have shaped your decisions for years and realize they may have been wrong all along. But remember, feeling discomfort is a sign of growth. Every time you lean into that discomfort and look your beliefs in the eye, you weaken their hold on you. As you challenge one false belief after another, you create space for new, more truthful ones to grow. Instead of telling yourself, I can't do this, you can begin to say, I'm learning how to do this. Instead of telling yourself, I'll never be loved, you can practice saying, I am worthy of love, and it is already present in my life. And the more you repeat these new truths, the more they take root. It's like cultivating a garden. You remove the weeds so that the flowers have room to bloom. This practice of challenging false beliefs also changes the way you move through the world. When you stop accepting every negative thought as absolute fact, you reclaim your sense of possibility. Maybe you never applied for that promotion before because you told yourself you weren't ready. Maybe you never took that first step toward a dream because you assumed you would fail. But without those false beliefs holding you back, you'll find yourself more willing to take risks, to embrace new opportunities, and to grow into your full potential. And this is what self-empowerment truly looks like: not denying your fears or your doubts, but facing them head on and deciding that they will not define you. As you go forward, practice this habit of challenging the thoughts that do not serve you. The moment you catch a false belief emerging, whether it's one you recognize or one that surprises you, take a breath. Remind yourself that thoughts are not facts, and beliefs can change. Give yourself the compassion and patience you deserve as you begin to rewrite the stories that play in your mind. And most of all, remember that you are capable of change. You are strong enough to question, to challenge, and to grow beyond the limiting thoughts that once kept you trapped. Ladies and gentlemen, when you challenge your false beliefs, you do more than shift your thinking, you transform your life. So don't settle for a version of yourself built on fears and falsehoods. Dare to believe in your potential. Dare to embrace the truth of your worth. And dare to live the beautiful, expansive life you were created for. Replacing negativity with truth and positivity. Ladies and gentlemen, we all know what it feels like to be weighed down by negativity. It's like carrying an invisible backpack filled with rocks, each one labeled with a painful thought or fear. These thoughts tell us we can't do this, we're not worthy of that, or that happiness and success are forever out of reach. But here's the powerful reality: those thoughts are not the truth. They are not who you are. And most importantly, they are not in control. You are. That is why replacing negativity with truth and positivity is one of the most transformative decisions you can make in your life. First, let's recognize that negativity often comes from a place of habit. Maybe you grew up hearing harsh criticisms, or perhaps a past failure left a deep scar. Over time, these thoughts repeat so often that they feel like facts, but repetition doesn't make something true, it only makes it familiar. And what is familiar is often mistaken for what is real. That is where we come in. Every time you catch a negative thought, I'm not smart enough, I'm going to fail, people don't care about me, stop and recognize it for what it is. It's not a command, it's not a prophecy, it's simply a thought, and like all thoughts, it can be challenged and changed. To begin replacing negativity, you must put truth in its place. Truth is steady and kind. Truth is balanced. Truth acknowledges your struggles without exaggerating them into hopelessness. Imagine you're facing a challenge at work, and your inner voice is telling you, you'll never get this right. That is negativity speaking. But the truth might sound like this: this is difficult, and I may need time and practice to improve, but I am capable of learning. See the difference. Truth is not sugar coating, it's honest, hopeful, and rooted in reality. And once you make a habit of replacing negativity with truthful thoughts like these, you create room for positivity to grow. Positivity doesn't mean pretending everything is perfect. It means choosing to see what's possible, choosing to believe in your potential, and choosing to encourage yourself with compassion rather than defeat. That is the power of positivity, not empty optimism, but genuine encouragement that propels you forward. Let's take another example. Perhaps you've been telling yourself, "No one appreciates me." That's a painful thought, one that can feel very real in a lonely moment. But stop and look at the facts. Have you had people who smiled at you this week? Have you ever felt supported or acknowledged by someone? Even small kindnesses are proof that the harsh, absolute voice of negativity is lying. When you look for the truth, you'll often see glimmers of positivity, evidence that those negative thoughts don't tell the whole story. And as you continue to recognize those glimmers, you begin to change your inner landscape. More than that, you also send a powerful message to yourself every time you choose truth over negativity. I am worthy of kindness, especially from myself. That message will echo long after you speak it. This practice of replacing negativity with truth and positivity will take time, most habits do. But every time you do it, you are laying a new foundation. Every gentle correction of a harsh thought, every truthful counter to a lie, is like placing a brick in a path toward greater self-belief. And that path leads to resilience, because when challenges come, and they will, you'll face them knowing that your thoughts do not have to tear you down. You'll recognize that, yes, this may be hard. Yes, you may feel scared or uncertain, but you are also strong, resourceful, and capable of growth. That is why this is such important work. When you reclaim your thoughts and align them with truth and positivity, you are also reclaiming your sense of power. You go from feeling like a victim of your own mind to becoming the leader of it. And as you grow into this new mindset, you may begin to inspire others too. Because positivity is contagious. When you speak to yourself with honesty and encouragement, you speak to others in the same way. When you practice treating yourself kindly, it becomes easier to uplift someone else who's also weighed down by their inner critic. This is the cycle we want to create, one where truth and positivity replace negativity, not only in your own heart, but also in your relationships, your family, your community. Ladies and gentlemen, you deserve to live with thoughts that build you up instead of tear you down. You deserve to believe in yourself and in your future. Every time you recognize a negative thought, I encourage you to pause. See it for what it is, a thought that you have the power to challenge, and then gently replace it with a thought that is both truthful and positive. With practice, this will become second nature. Over time, the heavy backpack of negativity will grow lighter, and the empowering voice of truth will grow louder. And as you continue to embrace this mindset, you will find that your life feels brighter, not because everything around you changed overnight, but because you changed. You chose to live in the light of truth and positivity. And that is a choice that will uplift you every day. Practicing gratitude every day, ladies and gentlemen. We live in a world that often reminds us of what we lack, the things we wish we had, the goals we have yet to reach, the struggles that feel too big to overcome. It's so easy to focus on what's missing and to believe that if only we had more, we would be happier. But what if the secret to true joy doesn't lie in always wanting more? What if it lies in appreciating what we already have? That is the transformative power of practicing gratitude every day. Gratitude is not some fleeting, shallow feeling that passes when our circumstances change. It is a deep, deliberate practice of seeing the good in our lives, regardless of the season we're going through. It is a choice to say, even in the middle of my struggles, there is beauty. Even on my hardest days, there is something to appreciate. And this practice can begin with the simplest of things: the breath in your lungs, the warmth of the morning sun, a kind word from a stranger, or the company of a loved one. When you train yourself to notice these small blessings, they begin to add up, and you realize just how abundant your life truly is. But why is practicing gratitude every day so powerful? Because it changes the way you see the world. When you wake up in the morning and choose to list a few things you're thankful for: your health, your family, your shelter, or even your favorite song that brightens your mood, you set the tone for your entire day. Gratitude invites positivity into your thoughts and crowds out negativity before it can take hold. And when you end your day with the same practice, reflecting on moments you appreciated, people who showed you kindness, or even lessons you learned, you fall asleep with a heart at peace. Gratitude bookends your day with light and hope. That doesn't mean that practicing gratitude is always easy. Life is full of real hardships, disappointments, losses, and frustrations. It would be dishonest to pretend these hardships don't exist. But even then, choosing to look for something to be thankful for, even if it's the strength you found in yourself or the support of a true friend, can make all the difference in how you navigate your pain. That's because gratitude is not about ignoring your difficulties. It's about holding your struggles in one hand and your blessings in the other. And as you do, you begin to recognize that your story is not defined solely by pain, but also by the moments of grace, joy, and unexpected beauty along the way. Scientific research backs this up. Studies have shown that people who practice daily gratitude experience lower stress, better mental health, improved relationships, and even better sleep. That's because gratitude rewires our brain, it moves us away from the cycle of negativity, and helps us focus on what is good and possible. It reminds us that we are supported by life itself, even when we don't always feel it. And this practice also opens us up to deeper connections with others. When you appreciate someone, a co-worker who lightens your load, a friend who listens, or a loved one who has stood by you, let them know. Expressing your thankfulness not only uplifts them but strengthens the bonds between you. Gratitude is one of the most powerful languages of the heart, and let's not overlook how gratitude shapes our resilience. Every time you look for the good, especially when life is hard, you grow stronger. You discover that happiness is not a perfect destination, but a daily attitude. You begin to understand that you can face whatever comes your way because you have learned to draw from the well of appreciation that you have cultivated within. So, how can you make gratitude part of your daily life? Start small and make it a habit. Keep a gratitude journal where you write down 3 to 5 things you're thankful for each morning or evening. Make it a ritual at dinner to go around the table and share one good thing that happened that day. Even when you catch yourself complaining, pause and see if you can also find one thing to appreciate. These small, consistent practices will shift your mindset in profound ways. And most importantly, let your gratitude lead to action. When you appreciate someone, thank them. When you recognize a blessing, pass it on. Gratitude that is shared is gratitude multiplied. Ladies and gentlemen, every day is a gift, one we can embrace with eyes and hearts wide open if we choose to practice gratitude. Even in a world full of challenges, we have countless reasons to give thanks. Let us never overlook the simple joys, the kindness of a friend, the beauty of nature, the strength to rise again after a setback. When we practice gratitude every day, we light up our inner world with positivity, we draw more good into our lives, and we uplift those around us. Gratitude reminds us that life is not perfect, but it is precious. And as you walk out into this world today, I encourage you to take a deep breath, look around, and say, I am thankful. Do this every day, and you will find that your heart grows lighter, your mind grows clearer, and your life grows richer, all because you made the simple, powerful choice to practice gratitude. Taking action to break the cycle, ladies and gentlemen, we all know what it feels like to be stuck. Stuck in negative thoughts, stuck in unhealthy habits, stuck in patterns of fear or self-doubt that seem impossible to change. Too often we wait for the perfect moment, the perfect day, the perfect feeling to take action. But waiting only keeps us trapped in the very cycle we long to escape. That's why taking action is so powerful. Action is the spark that breaks the cycle of stagnation and begins the process of real, lasting change. But what do I mean by the cycle? The cycle is that repeating pattern in your life that keeps you feeling like you're going nowhere, the voice in your head telling you to give up before you've begun, the fear that keeps you quiet when you want to speak, or the comfort zone that feels safe but never allows you to grow. Every time you repeat that cycle, it reinforces itself. Every time you do nothing, it grows stronger, and yet, one small action can change all of that. You don't need to overhaul your entire life in a single day. You don't need to wait for a surge of motivation or for all your fears to disappear. You simply need to take one brave, imperfect, small step today. If you want to break the cycle of self-doubt, take action by facing one of your fears, even if it's just a tiny one. If you want to break the cycle of procrastination, do one small task right now rather than putting it off. If you want to break the cycle of isolation, reach out to someone, send a message, make a phone call. Action, no matter how small, signals to yourself that change is not just a wish. It is something you can do. That's the power of action. It reminds you that you are not powerless. Every small action is like putting a new brick into the foundation of your future. Action turns vague hopes into concrete progress. It reinforces the belief that your choices matter and that you can shape your own life. And each time you do this, each time you choose to do something rather than wait, you grow more confident. And yes, breaking the cycle will not always feel easy. It will feel unfamiliar at first. Fear may rise up and tell you it's too hard or too risky. But that fear is a signal that you're stepping into new territory, and that's exactly where your growth lies. Remember, fear is not a sign to stop. It's a sign that you're on the right path. And as you continue to take action day after day, those old, restrictive cycles begin to lose their grip on you. What once felt like an unbreakable pattern begins to look like a fading habit. Every small victory each morning you choose to exercise instead of hitting snooze. Each time you speak kindly to yourself instead of criticizing is a signal to your brain that you can do this. This is why consistency matters so much. Taking one action can start change, but it's repetition that truly breaks the cycle. With every step forward, you build momentum. It's like pushing a car that was stuck in the mud. The first few pushes take tremendous effort, but once you gain a little momentum, moving forward becomes easier and easier. And perhaps most importantly, action reminds you that you are not your past habits. You are not defined by your previous mistakes or your fears. You are the person who is choosing to act now in this moment. Every action you take is an opportunity to redefine yourself. That's why I encourage you to make your actions a priority. Even the smallest action can change your trajectory. Writing one sentence toward that book you want to write. Signing up for one class toward your career goals. Going for one short walk to jumps. Start your fitness journey. These tiny choices matter because they add up, and as you practice this, you'll begin to see how action and belief go hand in hand. When you act even before you fully believe in yourself, you send a message to your subconscious that you can do this. Action proves to you, better than any words can, that you are capable of change. Ladies and gentlemen, the cycle you feel trapped in is not as strong as your will to move forward. You don't have to wait to feel ready. You don't have to wait until all the conditions are perfect. Right here, right now, you can choose to take one small action toward the life you want. And as you do, you will discover that you are already becoming the kind of person who breaks cycles. You are becoming someone who meets fear with courage, procrastination with discipline, and hopelessness with action. So, take that first step, make that first call, write that first sentence, say that first kind word to yourself. The cycle may have kept you in place for a long time, but with one deliberate action after another, you will break free. Your future self is waiting to thank you for starting today.